So now let us see the state of Spring 2021. So this is the survey done by the VMware, and this survey done by the VMware and then presented as a document to us to let us know the importance of this Spring Boot in the market nowadays. Okay, let us quickly start the the survey what they have published. So they have done the survey based on these parameters, like community. So Spring open source, the concept on the open source, and then concepts on the Spring projects that are available, and the APIs and then methods that we are using in Spring to develop the modern applications, and then the Spring native application. So these four sections they have done this survey. And in the survey, these are the age groups they have done: 25 years, 26 to 40 years. So all these members, they have done the survey. So architecture side, development side, managers and all. So these are the various persons on whom the survey has been done. And this is, if you can see, years of experience with Spring Boot. So less than 1 year, 4% are there. 1 to 2 years, 16%, meaning the people who are using the Spring Boot in their project since last 1 to 2 years are 16%. Since last 2 to 5 years are 60%, and more than 5 years are just 31%. Because the Spring Boot has been came into the market in 2014. So maybe more than 5 years from now is around 2017, right? 2017, 16, 15. However, since last 2 to 5 years, the Spring Boot is using by the most 60% of the members. So why we need to, again, the question actually, so let us frame a few questions. Let us write few questions. You are attending the session, right? Maybe you will get questions. So why we need to learn Spring Boot? Why we need to learn Spring Boot microservices, Spring Boot microservices and cloud? Why we need to learn is second, why we need to learn Spring Boot microservices and cloud? Second, do we, okay, what technologies are maybe tools that we have to learn apart from the Spring Boot microservices? Do we need to learn any other technologies or any tools apart from the Spring Boot? And first important question, do we get job on Spring Boot? We learn Spring Boot. Do we get job on Spring Boot? Learn it, right? So meaning market opportunities we have to understand now. So these are the various questions. And also, do we really require the cloud knowledge or experience if we learn the microservices architecture? If we learn the microservices architecture, do we really require the cloud knowledge? And fifth question, do we need to know the Docker and Kubernetes as well? So these are the various questions. Maybe you are a beginners. I'm assuming that you don't have any knowledge on Spring Boot. I'm assuming that. And when you are trying to learn the Spring Boot microservices architecture, maybe these are the questions that may got in your mind. Do we really get the job? No, I know the Spring. I learn a Spring. I'm working on Spring. if I learn the Spring Boot, do we get the job on Spring Boot? If we learn the Spring Boot, what also we have to learn using the Spring Boot, right? What technologies or tools that we have to learn apart from the Spring Boot, right? And then do we really require the cloud knowledge? If we learn the Spring Boot microservices and then cloud stack, do we really need the cloud knowledge? And do we really need to know about the Docker and Kubernetes? So these are the questions that we will address, okay, by starting the session. First question, why we need to learn the Spring Boot microservices and cloud? So answer for this question is this survey report. So please, let's go and then understand the survey first, because are we spending our time in a right direction? Because time is precious, folks. So if you learn your time in a tool or technology or a framework which doesn't gives you the job, that could be a problem for you, right? So if you spend your time in learning the Spring Boot, does it really gives you the job? That's where now we are studying the survey. What survey is talking about? Okay. And one good thing is what we know, the Spring Boot experienced folks are the guys who have participated in the survey said they are using the Spring Boot since last 2 to 5 years. That means from 2017 to so far they are extensively using. Okay, here I am marking few dates. I will come back and then discuss about these dates. 2010 to 2015. Okay, so year. So maybe I can say year, and then I can say technology or framework. Okay, I'll come and then fill it up, but I'm just writing the dates for now. 2015 to 2017, 2017 to till today. Okay, so little interesting information that we will fill with this table. Okay, but before that, let us understand what is this Spring Boot. If we learn the Spring Boot, we will get the job or not. We'll understand, but and also we will see, from how the opportunities in the market are evolving since 2010 to so far. Fine. Now let's go back to our survey and then understand what survey is saying about, because we have to answer first question, why we need to learn Spring Boot microservices and Spring Cloud. Okay, let's quickly go back to the survey, and then this survey report you also can download, folks. Just type state of Spring 2021 in the Google, you will get the survey done by the VMware. Okay, till 2022 survey they have not done, maybe they are doing, or maybe they have done but not published, we don't know, but survey is available for 2020 year and 2021 year. Okay, let us scroll down. So first see this. In last year's survey, 52% of the organizations reported that Spring Boot was their primary or only development platform. See this answer we got. Why we need to learn the Spring Boot? Because 52% of the organizations, meaning if in Hyderabad there will be 100 companies, 52 companies are using Spring Boot already. In Hyderabad, 1 lakh companies, 52,000 companies are already using the Spring Boot as their primary platform. Assume in those 52,000 companies, or maybe let's say in Hyderabad we have only 10,000 companies. In those 10,000 companies, 5,200 companies are already using the Spring Boot platform. Don't you get job in that 5,200 companies? At least in one company, right? We will get for sure. That is in the last year, but now it is in 2021. The growth is 9%, meaning 61% of the companies, not 5,200 among 10,000, 6,100 till 2021, and 2022 maybe it goes like 7,000 out of 10,000 companies, 7,000 companies, meaning market is fastly occupying with the Spring Boot development as a Spring Boot for a development platform. Marketing is rapidly occupying by the Spring Boot as a primary platform for the development. So I'm pretty sure in the year 2022, this growth rate will be a minimum of 5% again. Meaning on an average, so far 65% of the companies are using the Spring Boot. That's where you have to start learning Spring Boot, because majority of the companies are using. More than 50% is a good opportunity, right? 65%, 70%, meaning what? You have to learn this tool if you are a Java developer. You have to learn this framework if you are a Java developer. Sir, what is the Spring Boot? Let us discuss what is that Spring Boot and all maybe later in time. But first, gain the global view of the Spring Boot, global view of the microservices architecture. Opportunities wise, just understand. Then we'll think about the technicalities and all maybe later. But okay. So this is clear that 61% of the companies are using Spring Boot as their primary development platform. Why? The only answer is why the companies are using. The only answer is it's an open source software with the rapid application development support. It's an open source software with the rapid application development support, meaning RAD. RAD meaning rapid application development support. RAD, rapid application development. So Spring Boot is the only platform which is an open source with the RAD development, rapid application development. Rapid meaning fast. If a Spring WebMVC application to develop, it will take assume 5 days. In a single day, the same work you can do using the Spring Boot. A simple Spring WebMVC application that you need to develop might take an half an hour. The same application you can develop using Spring Boot within 5 minutes. 25 minutes of your time will be saved. Huge time in your day-to-day 8 hours productive time. Right? However, now we got a clarity why we need to learn this Spring Boot. Okay. So because only simple reason, folks. Most of the companies are nowadays using Spring Boot as their primary Java development platform. So if we also learn Spring Boot, as 65% of the companies now using the Spring Boot, we definitely will get the job in them. However, let's go to the next survey report. This is 95% of the respondents of this survey say Spring Boot has a huge positive impact on productivity, developer productivity. Productivity meaning what? You have a productivity meaning what? You have a 8 hours of time, right? A day to day, folks, how the billing will be calculated? The billing will be calculated for 6 hours only. Nowadays, everyone is following the agile methodology. In agile methodology, everything will be easily monitored and then tracked, right? So that means 8 hours is the 8 hours is your work hours. In that 8 hours work hours, 6 hours is the productive work hours. Where that's how, the companies, when you got an offer in the offer letter, you will see 9 hours is your working hours, including 1 hour as lunch hour. That statement you can see in your offer letters. What does it mean? What does it mean is 1 hour lunch hour is, if we can see the Infosys, Wipro kind of an offer letters, I have seen this actually. 9 hours is your work hours, including lunch is 1 hour. And some companies, product-based companies, doesn't bother about this kind of work hours and all. But what I mean to say is, overall your work hours are 8 hours. In that 8 hours, 6 hours are your productive hours, meaning where actually you will work on your development or maybe whatever your activity in the company. So if you are a developer, right, there is a huge impact on your productivity, meaning in 6 hours, earlier you only used to write one assume you only use to write one business logic, one use case business logic. Maybe you can consider, let me share quickly something. Not this one. Let me share something. Yeah. So consider our application is not this one. Not this one. So just let me open one other application, or else consider our application is this one. Retail e-commerce management. In that, in your 6 hours earlier, you worked on writing the controller. You know controller, right? Maybe if you know the Spring Web MVC, you know what is this controller meaning is. Or your 6 hours you worked on writing the exception handling. Or your 6 hours you worked on enabling the transaction management. Or your 6 hours you worked on enabling the data source management and all earlier. But with a Spring Boot, all those tasks you can do in a 1 hour. Meaning there is a huge impact on product. Assume repository you need to write. Earlier we have a Hibernate. What we need to do? A 6 steps of the Hibernate client we need to write. Dependency we need to add, right? And session opening, session closings, data source management, all those things we need to do. That at least will take 30 minutes of time. But nowadays readily available, entity manager, session factories, GP repositories available with the Spring Boot. You can go and then just auto-write it. It's a matter of 1 or 2 minutes just to configure the database properties and all. That's it. 30 minutes of your job is reduced to just 2 minutes. That is the beauty of the Spring Boot framework. That's where 95% of the people said, Spring Boot has a huge positive impact on the developer productivity. And 91% of the people who involved in this survey said, Spring has a bigger impact on developer productivity than other Java platforms. Maybe we have the other frameworks might be like maybe Struts, or maybe like any other frameworks, JSF, way back in 2010, 2011, I'm talking about JSF, Struts, other frameworks were there. But out of them, Spring becomes the leader. Spring becomes the pioneer in these all other Java frameworks. And nowadays, 91% of the Java platforms are using Spring as their platform. In that Spring, again, they are using Spring Boot as their development platform. Okay, so this is one survey. And most important thing we will see in going forward. Yeah, this is very, very important. Very, very important. See this, what the survey is saying. What are the Spring projects are most commonly using in the market nowadays? What are the Spring projects mostly using in the market nowadays? And if we have a knowledge or experience on these Spring projects, 100% we will get the job, because the market occupied 70% of the companies are now using Spring Boot as their Java platform development or Java development platform. In that Java development platform, as they're using the Spring and in the Spring and Spring Boot, what other things we need to learn, or what are the other Spring projects that the market is widely using is, see this, Spring Data, 79% they are using. Folks, please pay your attention, please concentrate. What we have to learn is ideally always a good decision, confusion thing, and then we need to take a wise decision there. See this, Spring Data is using by the companies, 79% of the companies are using Spring Data. The Java and Spring is their platform, then 79% of the companies are using. See, the top 3 projects this year remains the same. Spring Data, Spring Security, and Spring Web MVC. Awesome. See this? Spring Data, Spring Security, and Spring Web MVC are the top 3 projects that are using by the market. So while you are attending the interviews, 100% you will see the questions on these topics. How you have implemented security in your project, how to handle the security in a stateless applications, how the security being maintained in a stateful applications, what is OAuth 2, what is JWT, right? And how to exchange the token, JWT token, among the various applications, how to achieve the single sign-on, right? And coming to Spring Web MVC, right? How to write the web controllers, how to write the REST controllers, how to handle the validations, how to implement the internationalization, how to handle the exceptions globally, right? All these things will, these questions are very, 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 very common questions, folks. Since 2010, they are asking these questions, right? Meaning I am talking about a general, any framework you can take. These are the general parameters, general concepts. Every framework, on every framework we used to implement. So similarly, the same questions also might be there in the Spring Web MVC, right? And again, Spring Data. In Spring Data, what we are using? Spring Data JPA we are using, or Spring Data, the Jdbc we are using, Spring Data. What we are using in that Spring Data, right? There are various other umbrella projects in Spring Data. See, if you can see in Spring Data JPA is using by the 79% of the folks. Sir, what is this JPA? Where we will use the Spring Data JPA? Now let us go and then see our architecture. Now this is not this architecture. If you can see this architecture, I think it is visible, right, for you. This is the layer, repository layer, or the DAO layer, where we will implement the data JPA and to talk to the database and persist these entities into this database, right? So this is the place where we will use the data JPA in our real-time projects. Or this is the layer where we will use the Spring Data JPA. For example, if you can take the application like this, see this, again here also you can see the repository. In repository, this is the place where we are using the Spring Data JPA. What that is doing, that is making the entities to be saved or managed into the database. Why it is using? Why? Because we no need to write any code. Predefined methods were already implemented in the repository. For example, to save some record into the DB, to get some record from the DB, to search some records into the database, right? To search some records from the database, and to retrieve the records based on pagination. Earlier, we used to write a lot of code in the DAOs, but nowadays, no need to write. Whatever your operation, querying, searching, filtering, saving, deletion, updation, whatever your database operation is, for all those database operations, already predefined interfaces written in the Spring Data JPA. You go and then use that interfaces of your choice. JPA repository, CRUD repository, right? A lot of repositories have been implemented. So what repository? If you want Kafka and if you want Elasticsearch, right? Lot of inbuilt things were given for the this database management operations through the Spring Data JPA. That's the reason the Spring Data JPA is using 79%, because to save to the database, the ultimate choice everyone is choosing as a JPA. Of course, here there are few technical interview questions that we will discuss maybe future. Okay, now after JPA, if we take the Spring Data project, after JPA, Jdbc, Spring Data Jdbc, again 74% of the people are using, and Spring REST, Spring Data REST is using by the 51%, and MongoDB 46%, Redis Cache 37%, Elasticsearch 31%. So this is how the Spring Data sub projects are using in the market. So if you learn the Spring Data, then you will learn Spring Data JPA, Jdbc, Rust, MongoDB, Reddy Sketch, Elasticsearch. So these are all the things. So, sir, do we need to learn all these things? No, not required. Learn whatever is required. So don't worry. I already have designed one architecture diagram, the realistic approach, and what we have to learn and how to learn and all these things. Probably I'll explain with this architecture diagram. I will explain, and you will get definitely a good scope what to learn. Okay, now coming to see this Spring Security, 79% of the members are using. So what are these statistics suggesting us? The statistics suggesting us to, while you are attending the interviews, boss, don't attend interviews without this technical skill. Sir, I learn Spring, I learn Hibernate, I learn Struts. Okay, that is good. But what is now market is expecting? Market is expecting Spring Security, you have not learned it. Market is expecting Spring Data, you have not learned it. Right? Market is expecting Kafka, you have not learned it. Market expecting the Spring Cloud, but you have not learned it. Right? Market is expecting the Redis cache knowledge, but you have not learned it. These are all the loopholes that you have in your learning. Then how you are attending the interview? Tell me. Right? Market expectation is different. They are expecting apple, but if you go with the banana, how it will match their expectation? That doesn't match, right? So that is the reason always we should have to first study the market, what is expecting. However, it is very clear, right? Spring Web MVC, Spring Security, Spring Data, Kafka, Spring Integration, Spring Cloud, Spring Batch, all these are expecting by the market. Sir, do we need to learn all these things? How much time it will take? How much packages we will get? All those things now let us see. Okay, which Spring project should you pick? Right? So if you can see this, while business needs and architecture requirement, while business needs and architecture requirements are always primary consideration, right? We wanted to understand all the factors that go into evaluating the Spring projects. So as that process, Kotlin, future, Kotlin gains the market force. Maybe down the line by the 2024, 2025, Kotlin will gains the market for sure. But okay, nowadays Java is very good. Okay, but however, what Spring project should you pick? There are various reasons what Spring project should have. We have to pick. We have to understand the community support. We have to understand the maturity of the framework. We have to understand the documentation available for that framework, right? Case studies and the enterprise architecture team, meaning approved by the enterprise architecture teams. So all these things we have to consider. The only one framework which is, satisfying all these factors is the Spring Boot. So that's where you start learning the Spring Boot. Okay, go here. 97% of the respondents who involved in this survey said APIs are critical to their Spring development efforts. What does it mean? What does it mean? So types of applications organizations use Spring Boot for. So Spring Boot is using for exposing the APIs, meaning writing the REST APIs. 84% of the members are writing the Spring Boot, using the Spring Boot for exposing the REST APIs. 74% of the members are developing a complete business applications using the Spring Boot. And 68% of the people are exposing APIs to external consumers. External consumers meaning, for example, my application is you might have seen this use case, right? Insurance use case, if you can see. You might have a ICICI Lombard, or maybe other insurances, maybe. For all these things, the only insurance provider is United India Health Insurance. I hope I will draw something else in front of you to understand this use case. So maybe I don't take your much time. but I just would like to make sure what to be learned as part of this, Spring Boot and then microservices courses. So let me discard it. And let me open a new diagram just in case. So maybe sample. So let me save it. And just I don't want to take your much time, but I would like to draw something else. For example, there is an insurance company, right? So there is an insurance company called United Health India Insurance. Maybe we can say like this. Yes. So this is the United Health India Insurance. And there are, we can say this as the United Health India Insurance Company. And there is ICICI Lombok, and there may be some Star Health Insurance, or maybe some, Kotak Mahindra Bank Insurance, or some other insurances. Now, these insurance providers, TPS, meaning third-party providers. So these providers will purchase the insurances from the this insurance government of India. So that is, that is the provider. So they will purchase the insurance plans and all from this government of India, right? United, I think one name is there, United Health Insurance of India, I believe. So these guys will provide the plans, insurance plans, insurance prices, insurance details to these providers. And being users, we are here. So couple of persons might take, few of the persons might take the ICICI, whatever Lombok or something, Lombard or some insurance, or few members might take the, Kotak Mahindra insurance, or few members might take some other insurance, Star Health Insurance, something like that, right? So these third-party providers were developed their mobile applications, their web applications, and they will ask us to upload our insurance documents in these portals. And they were asked us to explore the insurance facilities that they are providing in these websites. But underlying, they will go to this United India Insurance Company and then pull out the insurance details. So this is a consistent process, meaning from here to here, when any new insurance plan, when any new insurance details have been modified here, all these things will be auto pushed here, meaning whatever the changes or whatever the latest things will come here, automatically that will push you to all these insurance providers. What do you understand from this one? Number one, so this insurance provider might have developed the APIs where these guys are consumers for these APIs to consume in their projects. That is one case. Second case is, this guy will upload everything into a broker, and from that broker, these guys will get it, like Kafka kind. That is second case. But however the case is, in order to speak to this United India Insurance Company by all these folks, they required an interface. These requires an API of the United India interface. So this API is exposing to these external providers from this United India Insurance. So that is where the meaning of this one. Expose APIs to external consumers. 68% members are doing that. Okay. However, the Spring Boot is using for, you have to pay your attention here. Spring Boot here using for exposing the APIs and developing the business applications. Both. For both it is using. Okay. Now scroll down this one. So batching out with Spring Native. Of course, these things we can discuss maybe going up time. Maybe this is, so that's it, the survey end. So the survey is suggesting now we have to learn the Spring Boot with all these Spring popular projects. Okay, so what are the salaries on Spring Boot? So just hit Spring Boot microservices salary. So there is a site called indatalent.com. So these guys have done again. This is what, the salaries that are showing on the Spring Boot microservices. For senior software engineer, what is this? 14 lakhs 50,000 is the salary, minimum salary for the senior software engineers nowadays. And for the project managers who know the Spring Boot and all, in some companies, folks, managers also will do the coding, architects also will do the coding. But the managers with this skill set, they'll get around 11 lakhs. I don't know, 1, 2, 3. What is this? 1 crore or 1 crore 10 lakhs? I don't know. This is, and software engineer salary is, I think it is 10 lakhs per annum, and marketing manager is 8,75,000. Test engineer is 8,50,000. So these are the salaries, related salaries, they were published. But for a developer salary, if you can see, on an average 14 lakhs 50,000. And if you can see, the average Spring Boot developer salary in India is 12 lakhs per year, or rupees 615 per hour. 615 rupees per hour. Of course, this is not correct probably, but this 12 lakhs per annum is the minimum CTC for any engineer who have the knowledge or experience on the Spring. Entry level position started at 8 lakhs per year, while most experienced workers make up to 22 lakhs per year. So this is how the guys experience on the Spring Boot are getting this salaries. So here most experienced mentioned, right? This is not like 10 years, 20 years. No, nowadays the guys who have 4.5 years experience also getting 23, 24 lakhs of CTC. The persons who have the experience like 4 years, they got 30 lakhs CTC. Is it true? Am I telling true or lie? No, I'm telling true. So why they have the guys 5 years experience persons got 23 lakhs per annum CTC, right? The guys who have 6 years of experience, they got 24 CTC. 3 years experience, they got 20 lakhs CTC. Like that, based on the skill set, based on the demand, based on the requirement, right? If you have the Spring Boot, microservices and cloud in your profile, and in average, you can make something around a maximum up to 25 CTC, 25 LPA you can make. If your experience is in between 3 years to 6 years, you can reach maximum up to 24 lakhs per annum. If you have the Spring Boot microservices and then Spring Cloud in your profile. Okay. Fine, sir. Everything is good. Spring Boot salaries are good, and then Spring Boot, what we have to learn is good. But what we can develop using the Spring Boot, how we have to start our learning. Okay, so your learning should have to start from this stage. So using Spring Boot, probably I have to load one more diagram. Just give me a moment. Let me load one diagram, so that will gives you the clarity. Just give me a moment. Just give me a moment. Yeah, so Spring Boot with Shopify. Yes. So hope you are able to see my screen. This is what we gonna do. Right, see this. So this is what we're gonna start implementation here. So using Spring Boot, first we will write one application. That application have the modules like courses management, products management, orders management. And this application is using the view like this probably. Right, if you can see dashboard, categories, products, orders, and then customers. Guys, can you please stop your video? Thank you. Thank you. Right, so this is what we will implement. Sir, what is this? See, if you can carefully observe, we are developing the modules, and all these modules are packing in a WAR file, and WAR file deploying in the Tomcat here. All these modules are packing as a war file. The war file is deploying in the Tomcat. And we are using a single database, of course, with the replication we are using. What is this replication, sir? Okay, I'll discuss maybe later, but the single database we are using. And our related modules and all we can see in our Spring Boot applications, Spring Boot admin dashboard. And finally, we can see this view. So here, one important point you need to understand is what we developed here. What we developed here. For example, the application will be something like this. So this is I already deployed in the AWS, something like this. So departments, doctors, patients, appointment. This is what an application where we have implemented these are as a modules. If you can go to the code, let me go back to the code. I'm just showcasing you what we have implemented and what we need to learn actually. See this. So we have implemented all these doctors, modules and all. If you can see, department, doctor, dashboard, all these things we implemented in a single project. That single project has been built as a var file, right? So if you can see the pom.xml file, its artifactory type is the var packaging, meaning all the modules that we were implemented, all these modules we were implemented and then packaged all these modules as a var file and then we deployed in the Tomcat. This approach or this development is called as a monolithic application development. And this development have some problems. What are those problems and all we may discuss going forward, but this development is some problems. Sir, are we using Spring Boot here? Yes, we are using Spring Boot here only. Using Spring Boot only, we developed it. Using Spring Boot only, we developed entire thing using Spring Boot. But in this architecture, we have seen little problems. As a solution for this architecture, we have to go to this architecture, microservices architecture. What are microservices? How to implement? And all the things we can see later. But if we can see the difference here, all the modules have a one database, but here each and every module is have one database, and each and every module have its own deployment environment like Tomcat, right? What we have done here, they generalized the single Tomcat contains all the modules, right? Now all these applications are developed as a tiny applications. All these modules are developed as a small applications, and those we called as microservices. Sir, what are the benefits we will get if we implement like this? That benefits we will see going forward in the demo. We will see. But this is what we have implemented. But this will give you the job. Maybe this will give you the job, but not more calls you will get. This is you have learned a Spring Boot, you implemented the microservices, that's it. Is that expecting by the market? Maybe certain to some extent this is good. But what you learn, this is really not good enough for a 5 years experience, 6 years experience. Right? This is good enough for 2 years experience, 3 years experience. But for 5 years, 4 years, 6 years, this implementation is not good enough. We need to implement more. What is that more? What is that more implementation is this one. Let me open another architecture. So where it is? So what is that is not this one. Let me open here. Not this one. Just let me go ahead. Let me load one more diagram so that I can showcase. So whatever we discussed is not really expect. That's okay, good. But industry is expecting, market is expecting a more. So what is that more is what I'm going to showcase now here. So let it load. Perfect. Now let me reduce it to 75%. Or else let me open it as a PDF document. Yes. Yeah. Hope now you are able to see this diagram, right? See this architecture. This is what you have to learn in reality. In reality, this is what you have to learn. Sir, all these things we have to learn. Yes, you have to learn all these things. So with a 90 days of time duration, if you learn all these things, you never come back again. Wherever you will go, you will get a good opportunities. What is the difference, sir? We have not finding out any difference. Yes, I will tell you the difference. Now this is one architecture, and we have fine-tuned this to this level. So whatever the microservices here you can see, right? Product management, order management, these are all this product service, order service, payment service, category service. These are all the microservices you will implement. But implementation of the microservices doesn't sufficient, folks. Management of the microservices is required. So for the management of the microservices, we need an ecosystem. That ecosystem will be implemented using the Spring Cloud. That ecosystem will be implemented using the Spring Cloud and other Netflix borrowed components and other external components as well. For example, Apache Kafka, RabbitMQ, Grafana, Prometheus, Jipkin. These are all not as part of the Spring Cloud, but they are borrowed. Right? ELK. What I mean to say is basically in microservices architecture, implementation of the microservices is really doesn't matter. Who learn Spring Boot will easily implement microservices, but management of the microservices is really important. For example, the famous question is security. How you will secure the microservices, right? What is the security implementation you are using at your microservices, right? So we have to explain OAuth2 framework. We have to explain the JWT token and how the JWT token is exchanging among these microservices is what we have to explain. And in a microservices architecture, handling the security is majority, because survey is also talking about 79% of the industry or 79% of the organizations are looking for the security, Spring security. So that Spring security, how we have implemented is really matter. So in microservices architecture, there is one identity and access management server is required. So what is this identity and access management server? How we can implement it? We will see. This user management service will use the identity management server and then provides the user identities here. Maybe LDAP, maybe AD, maybe database, whatever it is. And there will be a gateway. If you can see, these microservices are there in the virtual private cloud, meaning private network. If these persons, these Angular application, React, mobile, or any POS like ATMs or scanner systems, if they will come directly and then access these services, they won't be able to access the data of the services because these are in the private network. Directly, we cannot access. So to access these applications, we have to host a gateway in our public network. So gateway will take all the incoming requests and gateway will route the incoming request to the underlying microservices. And how the gateway know about where are these microservices? For that, gateway will see the registry and get the services details where they were and then hit them via a load balancer. And now the security, coming to the security. Gateway, when accessing these services, should have to pass a security token. And where the gateway will get the security token, how it validates is also the matter. If you can see this user management service, once after submitting the user credentials to this IAM, get the access token and then putting that access token into the cache. That means what? In the microservices architecture, cache will play a vital role. You also need to learn the cache, right? Caching. Of course, in Spring Boot, we have a concept called caching. So that caching, or maybe Redis cache, right? Redis as a server we can use and then we can cache. So caching is playing a vital role in the microservices architecture because once the user is authenticated, get the token, dump in the cache. Now these applications will do what, come to gateway, provide username and password, and that username and password, the gateway will go to user management service and it will go to IAM. Username and password will be verified here. IAM will give a token to here. That token it will dump to cache and also will give to gateway. Then gateway will give the token to these applications. Next time when these applications are coming to this gateway, they have to present the token what the gateway have been given to them. So with that token, when they are coming to here, now gateway have to do a verification. What it will do, gateway will take the token and that token and the token that is there in the cache, both are same or not. It will verify. Both are same. Then the same token it will forward to these microservices. Again, these microservices will go to cache, get the token and compare both the tokens which is coming from the gateway is exactly same as the token that is there in the cache or not. Exactly same meaning, not content comparison, time frame comparison. So the session of the token is valid or not. If yes, then category service or product service will give the response. This much of security mechanism is there, right? If you learn only Spring Boot, I will attend the interview. If you learn only microservice, oh, I got a good understanding, I will attend interview. No, that doesn't give the job. So you need to understand the architecture implementation plus architecture management. Microservices management is really crucial, folks. Okay, and these are all the microservices, right? If any microservices will fail, yes, I will show. If the microservices will fail due to some issues and all, where we will see that issues and all, right? We have to go to microservice and then open the log file. No, in reality, hundreds of microservices we have. Will we go there and then open the logs and then see the logs? No, that is not good. Then what we have to do? We have to implement a centralized distributed logging mechanism using the ELK. So that centralized distributed logging mechanism will collect the logs from our microservices. So this is our microservice log, and there is a log stash component. So this will collect our logs using some socket TCP appender. I will explain the internals and all maybe once we started the course. But what I mean to say is the log stash will collect our microservice logs and then show the logs in a nice dashboard called Kibana. In the Kibana, we can go and then see the logs, what issue came, when came and all, right? And also if you can see this, category service would like to update its status to this product service. Hey, there is a category came. If you want, you can add your product under that category. Then how this communication will be happening? This communication might happen with the pubs and subs model, that is event-driven microservices. The event-driven microservices, transactions are very important. Let us assume the scenario. The category, here the products are under one category, right? Category is the clothes, category is the electronics, category is the some other categories. So products will be definitely fall under any of this category, right? So when category changed, then the products also should have to notify and then update the products with that category, isn't it? Then how it will notify to this product, right? For that, we have to introduce an event-driven system called CQRS and distributed transaction mechanism called Saga. For them, we need a broker, message broker. So maybe we will use RabbitMQ, we will use Kafka. Over RabbitMQ, Kafka have more benefits. We'll discuss in detail in our regular course implementation, and then we will use Kafka, right? And then this microservice is calling this microservice, this microservice is calling this microservice, where we can see this trace, complete trace of these microservices. There is a dashboard called Jipkin where we can see the complete trace of microservices. And I would like to see a nice report of this category service, like how many members are consumed this service, and category service, how it is performatically, how it is and all. What is the CPU consumption? What is the memory consumption? How fast it is working and all. If you would like to know, then go and see the Grafana and Prometheus dashboard. Now you might have got a clear picture, right? Learning Spring Boot, learning microservices is step 1. Learning Spring Cloud to manage the microservices is step 2. And deploying the microservices in the production using the Docker and Kubernetes is the step 3. So 3 steps learning you have to do in this Spring Boot and microservices architecture. If you do these 3 steps, for example, let me write it down here. Maybe you also might know, but let me write it down here. So level 1, you have to learn Spring Boot and you have to learn the microservices. And level 2, you have to learn microservices management with the Spring Cloud. And level 3, you have to learn the microservices deployment in production. So these 3 levels of learning you have to do on microservices architecture. Then you know, this learning will take, for example, Spring Boot microservices with Spring Cloud. This learning might take 90 days for you, and this learning might take another 45 days for you. And on average, if you spend 4 months of time in this learning, you never come back for minimum 3 to 4 years down the line. Yes, you never come back. You happily can do your job since till 2025, I believe. I'm sure. Because you learn everything, you know everything, how to manage and all, then happily you don't need to learn anything. With this tech stack, you can survive in the market for coming up 4 years. For sure. Okay, maybe you now got an idea, right? And just out of curiosity, I'm sharing. I'm not, maybe this is what, what I have planned for is just would like to showcase you. If you are interested, you go attend the demos from tomorrow onwards. But here, if you can see, Spring REST and WebMVC, right? Spring REST is mostly using as part of the Spring Boot, right? And WebMVC, in this survey we have seen, using the Spring Boot, we also can develop the applications, enterprise or business applications. This is so that business applications implementation, we will learn this WebMVC. So Spring REST and WebMVC, Spring Data JPA, transaction management, right? And Spring Batch, CQRS and Saga, Cloud Gateway, service registry and load balancing. So let me compare this content with the architecture what we have drafted or what we have seen, right? Let us quickly compare it so that you will get an idea. So this is, see this? So Spring Cloud Gateway. Spring Cloud Gateway with what? Spring Cloud Gateway with the Resilience 4J. This is very important. What is Resilience 4J? Circuit breaker and rate limiter. What is circuit breaker, sir? What is rate limiter? We will see once we started. But see here at the gateway level, we will implement this Resilience 4J. And then if we can see transaction management, each and every microservice will be implemented with the internal transaction, local transaction management. And when it comes to other service, then a distributed transaction management using Saga will be implemented. So Spring Cloud Gateway we have seen, circuit breaker we have seen, and transaction management now we have seen. Spring Data JPA we will implement here to store something into the database. And Spring REST and then WebMVC we'll implement to expose our business functionality as an APIs, right? And then service registry and load balancing, if we can see in the architecture, service registry and load balancing is required. And then logging ELK series, this ELK logging will do. And then tracing and then sleuthing Jipkin. So tracing and distributed tracing using sleuth and Jipkin. Here we will implement it using the sleuth and then Jipkin. And integration with MongoDB, Apache Kafka, Redis cache. You might now got the use case where we will use Redis cache, isn't it? So this is where we will use the Redis cache for token management. For the security purpose, we will use Redis cache in our architecture, microservices architecture. Where we will use this Kafka we will use for the distributed transaction management using Saga. We will use a CQRS, and also for the event-driven microservices communication, we will use this Kafka. Right, and also we will use the OAuth 2 and OpenID for the security, and JWT we will use, and Docker also we will use to Dockerize entire our microservices. And we will deploy all these things in a cloud using the Elastic Beanstalk. So whatever I have covered in this architecture, that is going to be as a course in DurgaSoft. From tomorrow onwards, the demos are starting. So if you are interested, just attend the demos. We'll discuss more about this microservices management, microservices architecture. That's all today, folks. Thank you so much for joining. I believe, let me start reading through your questions. I have less questions, but are you going to cover this security mechanism? Yes, we are going to. Yes, I'm going to cover the security mechanism. OAuth 2 plus OpenID using WSO2 is what I'm going to cover. Next question number 2, Hema. I'm Hemachandra. Yeah. I'm joining tomorrow Spring Boot, your class. Can you tell there from basics? Yes, from basics onwards, we'll discuss there in the Spring Boot. This is a awareness program, folks. No, don't confuse. This is just an awareness. Why should I have to learn Spring Boot, sir? In Amirpet, everywhere we will say Spring Boot. In interviews, everywhere I will go, they're asking Spring Boot. What is the Spring Boot, sir? Why I have to learn the Spring Boot? That's where we have opened the survey, seen the salaries, right? How the companies are opting for this Spring Boot. That's where we have seen. That is the intention of this session, 1 hour session, where I have interacted with you. Okay, then what is Spring Boot and all, right? From very scratch level, we will start from tomorrow onwards. The prerequisite for this course is Spring Core. If you know this, if you know the Spring Core, that is good enough. No, it is not 1 month. This is entire course that I have planned is 3 months, and for sure we will wind it up in 3 months. If not, yes, it will be extended also if we will complete it by 3 months. But content, there is no compromise in the content. What we have written here, right? Every statement, everything we will cover. Okay, so slowly we will go. You will get a good time to practice. I will give a good time to practice. Slowly we will go. But end of the session, you have to, comfortable level, and you have to crack the interview, right? So interviews questions we'll discuss during the session happening. I will provide a handout of the interview questions every week. You go through it and then prepare.
Sir, I have one question.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Are you providing a recording session?
Yes. Recordings will be available for 6 months.
Okay,
yes,
okay.
Recordings are provided.
I'm in class 7 to 8, right?
Yes, 7 to 8:30, 7 a.m. to 8:30 a.m. every day, 1.5 hour session.
Okay.
Yeah. I have one question, sir. Which programming language is required for Spring Boot or microservices?
Yeah, actually, for Spring Boot, definitely Java is required. On Java 8, we will implement this Spring Boot, and microservices will follow a polyglot architecture. But here we will use Spring Boot to implement the microservices. So Java 8 we will use to implement this Spring Boot, and using this Spring Boot we will implement this microservices. Okay, but
one more question.
Go ahead.
I have totally blank, sir. Blank now. My post graduation is completed in 2013, and I have currently one job, but not a programming language regarding job. This is the technical support related job. Currently, I am working tech support.
Okay.
Totally blank now for Java language.
Okay, I think this Spring Boot is really not good startup for you to start, because you don't know Java, right? You are saying you don't know Java, you don't know Spring. So in order to work with the Spring Boot, we definitely have to know at least what is Spring, and at least what is Java is required. Without Java, I think this is not the proper time to start. So there were other like DevOps with AWS. I have taken one session before this session. So who don't have a coding experience but would like to come to an IT industry, the right platform is what, DevOps with AWS. I think that is what the right platform for you. Okay.
Sir, what would be the prerequisite for that?
Yeah, the prerequisite for this is the Spring Core and the Java 8. Of course, Java is required and Spring Core is required.
Sir, do you have any batch for Spring Core, or you explain Spring Core also?
I will give the 1 week of brush up on Spring Core.
Sir, because we don't know Spring Core that much, so that's why. If you have any batch, that batch only we will join.
Yeah. But Spring Core is mandatory for you guys because again, learning Spring Core will take minimum 2 weeks of time. I will plan for it. I'll let you know. Maybe I'll plan for it because first 15 days I will brush up this Spring Core, and then onwards I'll start the Spring Boot. Maybe in that way that might help.
Not that much. That is brush up is enough for us.
Brush up is for 1 week. Brush up is for all the guys who have the already Spring Core. But if I take 2 weeks of time for telling the Spring Core, right, that is good enough. That is not the brush up. It is a complete Spring Core I will cover in 2 weeks. So, but I will think about it. Majority of the audience based on that I will think, because
I know Java but don't know Spring Core. So what about that?
what is that question?
I know Java but not Spring Core.
That's what actually Spring Core is required to attend the Spring Boot. So first we have to start Spring Core. What is Spring? What is Spring architecture? In that architecture, modular architecture, what is Spring Core? And what is the bean? What is application context? What is bean factory? There are some concepts actually. Those concepts we mandatorily have to learn. So then only we understood the Spring Boot. Otherwise, Spring Boot little difficult to understand. Okay, but I'll plan for them. 2 weeks Spring Core I will plan.
Sir, how do you share the videos?
The videos will be shared to your drive. While you are registering, you will give your email address, right? So to your drive, the day-to-day videos will be uploaded, and the video validities will be for 6 months.
6 months means after course duration, or
no? While from the date the course started, it will be 6 months. The course will be 3 months, and plus 3 months for your reference, revision and all.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Sir,
how much?
I simply request to you, please take a Spring Core started, because I have only Java knowledge. I don't have knowledge in Spring Core. So
Sure. I will take even before starting the Spring Boot, right? Tomorrow onwards we are starting our demos, right? So yes. I will tell what is Spring Boot and all, maybe 1 or 2 demos. Then we will start the Spring Core. So Spring Core from the very scratch I will start. Okay. Yeah. So will this course cover Angular or React or Docker and K8s as well? This course covers the Docker. If you can see this course covers the Docker, but not Angular, but not React, but not the Kubernetes. For Docker and Kubernetes, I will conduct a separate sessions going forward. Maybe weekend batches, or maybe 2 weeks batches or 15 days batches I will conduct for Docker and Kubernetes. But this course, what I designed, only cover the Dockerization of your microservices. Okay. Yep. How much experience we can showcase? Yeah, that's again interesting question, folks. I'm pretty can say, like, if you have properly learned all these things, again, if you implemented this architecture what I have shown, you can put 6 years, 5 years. That's very easy to manage. But at the same time, to showcase in 6 years or 5 years, we have to implement all these things on our own hands. We should be in a position. Then we can say 5 years, 6 years we can, but minimum is 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, according to your situations and gaps you can experience. Fine. Okay, sir, I'm from electronics background with 6 years experience in electronics, and I want to switch to IT. So yeah, probably initial the DevOps is the right course for you. Okay, so I hope I answered all your questions, folks. Thank you so much for your time. Though it is Sunday, but you have taken your time and then you have attended the session. For that, I'm really thankful to you. And hopefully, let us connect again tomorrow at 7 a.m. with the Spring Boot demos.
So where I will get the link? Where I will get the link for demo tomorrow?
I think you register today, right? While attending to this session, you might have given to that email address. You will get the demo links and all. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Yeah. Thank you so much, folks. I'm stopping the screen share and see you.